You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. We have especially interesting guests today across a range of issues. We start with Julie Zeilinger, our millennial generation correspondent, in an intergenerational dialogue about guilt and correct line politics on campus. Then we hear from Cecilia Abadie, whose tech firm offers wearables of the future like Google Glass. And we welcome a roundtable of Latinas, some undocumented, to analyze President Obama's recent executive order and to discuss what happens next. But first, we need to look inside the headlines. The headlines this week. You know, sometimes it seems you take a few days off and the whole world goes to hell in a handbasket. And if you're doing a weekly show and trying to stay current with the news, it's almost impossible. The Ferguson grand jury verdict came down, that is, the non-verdict. The NFL was told that they could reinstate Ray Rice. The nuclear talks with Iran foundered. And there were democracy riots in Hong Kong and many more things, but I've decided to focus inside the headlines with a few stories you might not have heard of. The first is from Egypt. No, it's not the finding by the court that Mubarak was not guilty of any of the corruption or killings or any of the bad things he was charged with, and so you can imagine the despair afflicting Egyptian human rights and feminist activists today. No, this story has a different headline. Egypt's first female genital mutilation trial ends in a not guilty verdict. This was a trial that health professionals, the government itself, women's rights activists, and generally intelligent people were all rooting for this trial because they were sure that the verdict would come down not in this direction but counter, and that it would for once and for all end the practice in Egypt. The practice has been declared illegal for some time but is still practiced sotto voce. So a preacher, fundamentalist Muslim preacher, Dr. Raslan Fadl, and the father of the girl who died, who was 12, have been acquitted, and the mother has been paid blood money by the doctor, and this little girl, whose name was Sohair al-Battah, a sweet-faced child, is dead. So that was one headline. And then, moving across the border to Israel, an Israeli academic has claimed that raping wives and mothers of Palestinian Hamas militants is the only thing that can deter further terrorist attacks. Gee, I didn't know that. Did you know that? The remarks by renowned Middle East scholar Mordecai Kedar of Bar Ilan University were made some weeks ago. And he added, the only thing that can deter a suicide bomber is knowing that if caught, his mother or his sister will be raped. It sounds very bad, he added, but that's the Middle East. You have to understand the culture in which we live. He's currently a researcher at the right-wing Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies, and he previously worked for a shadowy organization called the Israel Academia Monitor, which fights against left-leaning academic professors. Well, as you can imagine, feminist activists, both Israeli and Palestinian, in Israel, got rather upset and sent a letter to the university president, but so far Kedar is still on staff. And then last but not least, moving south to Kenya, Nairobi, a mob of men attacked and stripped a woman claiming she was inappropriately dressed just hours after nearly 1,000 people marched through downtown Nairobi to protest the rising wave of just such assaults. The the assaults have been taking place a lot on minibuses, a lot of sexual harassment there. In fact, 80 of the men arrested were conductors on minibuses known as matatus. The women who had been attacked were taken to a hospital with real injuries. And the hashtag, My Dress, My Choice, is trending in Kenya's social media now. The attackers have been pegged pretty much as right-wing, extremely conservative Christians that are afraid that Western ways are corrupting Kenyan women. The good news is that 1,000 people, men as well as women, marched saying women had a right to dress the way they wished. Activism always gets your spirits back up, so let's move along and meet with our guests because they're activists, and we need some of that. Now for our first guest. Julie Zeilinger returns to the program. She is the founder of the F-bomb, as in feminist, when she was a young teenager. And she's now a college woman, and she is our correspondent from the millennial generation. So I'm here with Julie Zeilinger, who is going to be our millennials correspondent, bringing us news and insights of younger feminists. And we thought we would start out her run as correspondent with an intergenerational dialogue on what she thinks is affecting young women today on campuses and off. Among the subjects, one or two that we've talked about off mic, guilt. Mm-hmm. So take it away.
Yeah, I guess just one of the things that I've noticed being on campus, I'm a senior at Barnard College right now. I'm a women's studies minor, and I've taken a lot of women's studies classes. And I've noticed that there's this really interesting dynamic around, as you said, the politics of guilt and the way in which we've turned feminism, this really dynamic social movement, into a competition in a way, and have really taken that dynamic of being graded in the classroom and being able to repeat these theories to police each other, rather than trying to educate each other and come from a more constructive place.
I say, what form does that take? Give an example or two.
Well, I think it's very much evident in the classroom to me, where young women will be speaking about an issue from a personal experience or from an academic perspective. And other students will come in and try to note the ways in which perhaps she is too privileged to speak from that perspective or doesn't understand oppression, and just completely characterize her in that way in order to silence her or him, depending on the student. But I've also noticed that this is incredibly evident in the blogosphere in a less academic realm, but I still think informed by that background, in which in the comment sections it's the same kind of dynamic where young women or young commenters will say that a blog post author doesn't understand the perspective or the theory that they're trying to grapple with because of their background. And of course, on the internet, you have limited information about whoever's writing anyway. And I think it just speaks to this broader dynamic that there are a lot of forces behind. I think perfectionism is one of them, where young women are sort of transmuting this idea of holding themselves to these unattainable standards to the feminist movement.
Perfectionism. Oh.
Yeah, I think it's a huge force impacting young women in my age, from teenagers to college-age women. And I think we, instead of looking at the feminist movement as something that's trying to disrupt these patriarchal ties that hold women to these unattainable standards, whether it's beauty or academically or sexually based on
perfection doesn't exist in the first place. And in the second place, it's profoundly boring.
It is profoundly boring, and it's very limiting. You see young women, there's statistics that show in all these studies that show that young women won't raise their hand in class as often as young men, that they won't ask for a raise or ask for promotion unless they're ultimately certain that they can get it and meet 100% of the qualifications.
Yeah, I see. This breaks my heart because I feel it's same old, same old. I mean, we did this, been there, done that, and this country is so ahistoric that even what happened yesterday doesn't necessarily get passed on. It sounds to me like what you're talking, the guilt politics, which God knows my generation went through, and those doing the guilting. In other words, the correct line, macrame, central committee kind of mentality that characterizes instead of criticizing behavior. When when you say your behavior hurts me or your behavior seems unfair, you give room for change. If you characterize the person, then you don't give, it's weighed and found wanting, sealed, damned forever.
Absolutely.
But the interesting thing to me is that it comes from a good place. It comes from, to me anyway, and the way that I've seen it played out with older women, back from when we were younger women, was identity politics, and beginning to realize that any statement that we made, any action, came from a context. It was just basically about context. So if you're a European American, you have a very different experience than an African American. The experience, I like to say, of sexism is the same. Rape is rape. Battery is battery. But the experience of the experience becomes different in the context. But when the context is used to put somebody down and feel better because it's a purer than thou. It's the old purer than thou game.
Absolutely. And
how do we get beyond this?
I mean, I think we need to acknowledge that intersectionality is very real, and that privilege is a real thing, and there are women who need to act in a concerted and very deliberate way based on their privilege, whether that's giving their space or opportunities to women of color, people from different backgrounds who have experienced more oppression than them. I think that's entirely valid and needs to be a very big part of this movement. But at the same time, we can't restrict people or paralyze them based on that guilt as well. That just plays into the oppression that all of us are experiencing.
Yeah. What do you suggest? I mean, are people doing any version of consciousness raising these days? What we used to call consciousness raising?
I think the biggest example of that is on the blogosphere. And of course, there are these destructive dynamics on the blogosphere where people are trying to police each other and trying to paralyze them based on this kind of guilt. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of really incredible work happening.
There is.
And I think the key to that is just to be as honest as possible instead of posturing. And that's, as the founder and editor of the F-Bomb, that's what I try to encourage in the teens and college-age women that write for that blog, is to be honest about your shortcomings, whether it's in knowledge or the positionality that you occupy. But don't try to act like you know everything. Don't try to act like you have all the answers. Just be honest about your shortcomings.
Well, in other words, pay attention to the matter at hand and the subject, not to the way you're going to look, positioning yourself to be pure on the subject. And some of that is hard because it's hard at any age when you want the approval of your peers, but it's harder when you're young and you really, really, really want the approval of your peers.
Absolutely.
What do you think is going to get through that speed bump?
I mean, I really do think addressing perfectionism on some level is necessary on a systemic level as it extends to this, because I think that there, especially for young women who are teenagers and college age who may be encountering feminism for the first time, I think they view feminism as this very static identity and something that they can achieve perfection in.
Oh my God.
Same way that they can in other roles.
Exactly. It's where you get freed from it.
Exactly. But I think a lot of people feel, a lot of young women, because they're so influenced by the way that they're held to these perfectionist standards in other areas of their lives, that there is a way to be the perfect feminist. And I think we need to change the dialogue about women and any of their roles, but especially in feminism.
Perfectionism.
Exactly. It's about educating each other and about learning. And really, feminism is about relationships. It's about being in a dynamic relationship with other people in this movement, not about fulfilling a role or fulfilling certain standards.
It's not about living up to somebody else's standards. It's about discovering your own. You know, and if perfectionism is alive and ill, then it must be another force behind eating disorders, I would imagine. And you mentioned to me in some other conversation that we had that there were situations where women were on campus, and we know the scandal of rapes on campus and the double betrayal by the institutions of learning themselves. But you were saying that there were more and more cases where women were afraid to report the rape if the rapist was a man of color, or if the raped woman, the survivor, was a woman of color. For fear of being called a racist. Now, that's appalling. whoever the rapist is, that should be reported and it should be fought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't speak statistically or obviously from personal experience on this. Yeah, it's anecdotal, but I think that race politics and political correctness exist widely on college campuses and in a lot of the things that we do. And I think that extends to this phenomenon as well. And I also just think in general, beyond the race politics, there's just not enough education, consent education, sex education on college campuses for young women, no matter what the confines of the situation, to even understand how to act at all or how to report at all. And that's a major issue in all of these discussions about sexual assault on college campuses.
So one of the demands has to be more student participation in using the administration of the university or college, using their facilities and their resources to be a support to educate young women in precisely these ways, but the control over the content being other young women.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's true, there are certain consent education programs on college campuses today, but the actual content is appalling because it's not informed. It's based on what the administration is sort of dictating that we learn rather than really asking young people about their experiences and getting real educators working in the field to come in even and teach these seminars. There needs to be a lot of dialogue and a lot of concerted effort around this.
This is a real problem for older feminists. And, because on the one hand, you want to say, oh my God, we've been there, we've done that. That does not work. That's really, really, really bad. Mm-hmm. Drop that, do not pass go, move along to something else. Or when they say, we're nice feminists, we're not those angry, shrill, I think to myself, do they not think we tried that?
Yeah.
We tried that. It didn't work. So then we moved on to something else. And of course times change and the context and the aura changes, but it's hard to find the right tone when one is conscious of not wanting to sound like everybody's great-grandfather. I had to walk 6 miles in the snow with no shoes and socks to go to school. You don't know how lucky you are, and all that crap. It's hard to find the way to be able to try to pass on some of our mistakes so that younger feminists don't have to reinvent the wheel and go through them again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do it in the right tone.
And I think there needs to be more intergenerational conversations across a wide variety of feminist issues, but especially sexual assault on campus, as you were saying, like Take Back the Night. When did that start? The 1970s even?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think that this is a perfect issue for there to be an open dialogue about what kind of tactics worked and didn't work in the past. I haven't personally seen that happening. I think there's a lot of incredible student activism. Right. I mean, this is one issue that young people, I think more than other issues I've seen, really mobilize around on campus. Mm-hmm. But it would be great to get the women who really pioneered this movement back into the conversation and to learn from them and to have them involved and participate.
Well, the Slut Walks seems to be a reincarnation of Take Back the Night, although the name has generated controversy on its own.
Yeah, I would have loved to see that continue even and to grow as a movement, because there was a lot of pushback on that. For, again, to speak to identity politics, it was largely, from what I understand, a white woman's effort. And then there were some issues there.
There were a number, yes. It was, I think I was born in Canada when a cop said,
so, yeah.
You dress like a slut, so you should, and was blaming the victim. But a number of us protested and said there are some words that are wonderful to reclaim, like witch, maybe even bitch, and that the women's movement has reclaimed. There are others that by their very etymology are really not reclaimable, and this may very, very well be one of them. But then there was also a lot of pushback from African American women who said, in our communities, this is not an affirmable word, please drop it, and it wasn't dropped.
Exactly.
So there are many interesting complexities going down. Well, we will have more of these conversations, and you will be back to tell us what we should be thinking about and what we should be knowing about your generation. And I think the feedback and forth will be quite wonderful.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
It's time to take a short break here. We're at Women's Media Center Live, and I'm Robin Morgan. And in our next segment, we'll talk with a woman who will explain to us just what will happen once our smartphones migrate to eyeglasses and even wristwatches. Don't go away.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back. Our next guest is Cecilia Abadie. When Cecilia is not busy pushing the boundaries through technology, she's getting the first ticket in the U.S. for driving with Google Glass, but she's beating it in court because she didn't have it on. She's a passionate evangelist about everything digital and a pioneer who spreads the word about wearable devices and the many ways in which they will change our world. Cecilia Abadie. Welcome to the program, Cecilia.
My pleasure to be here with you.
You are doing amazingly futuristic things. When you're not busy pushing the boundaries through technology, you're acquiring the first traffic ticket in the United States for driving while wearing Google Glass, and you beat it in court. And you're an explorer of wearable, futuristic stuff. So you have to explain to me. I am an Apple-equipped person. I have my iPhone, and I have my iPad, and I have my computer, and I love all of that, and I love the internet, and I live on it. But I haven't yet gone so far as Google Glass. So, and it scares me a little. It seems like it would be fascinating, but very distracting. Talk to me about Google Glass and what precisely it is, because I think I know what it is, but I don't know that I know what it is.
Perfect. I know some people do get a little bit scared because this is all new and because we have so much technology in our lives that people think, do I still need more? But the reality is that we want technology because it connects us to other people and it expands us in our abilities, like it connects us to all the information in the planet instantaneously. So Google Glass is bringing that possibility near us. We just have this little computer attached to our glass. So instead of having normal glasses, maybe in a few years, we might be all wearing these smart glasses, like Google Glass in this case. And Google Glass is a device that will allow you to do most of the things you used to do with your cell phone, like sending text messages. It's amazing to take pictures because you have it right there in the perfect place by your eyesight.
Mm-hmm. So how for example, how would I send a text message if I were wearing Google Glass? Where is the keyboard?
You would tap on the side of glass to wake it up because it's not there all the time, and that's partly the reason why it's not so as distracting as people think.
That's interesting.
So it's like your phone. It's off until you want to interact with it. So you tap and you say, okay, glass, send the message to... And you say the name of the person. That has to be already one of your contacts.
Right.
And then you say what you want to send to the person. So you say, I'll be there soon. And Google Glass will show you what's the message that it understood that you want to send. And if you said something wrong or interpreted something wrong, you can still cancel. But otherwise, it's going to continue and send that message for you.
Interesting. Very interesting. Oh, I have many things to ask you. Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a minute here. Since there is a major push now on to get people not to text while driving, isn't this a temptation while driving or operating heavy machinery or light machinery or whatever, or even walking down the street, to be using it and not see what's in front of you?
Yeah, there's always that temptation. Even with your car dashboard, you could be playing with your radio and getting distracted. So obviously any technology, anything pretty much actually in your car, you have to be alert. But if you had to get a message, for instance, instead of hearing the beep of your phone and being tempted to grab it and look at it and all those things, you can just watch up and say, okay, Glass, read aloud. So you never need to take your hands off the wheel or your sight off the road.
I see.
It might be, as far as being a hands-free device in the car, it is superior, absolutely superior to what we have today, which is phones. And we see it all the time that people are using phones in cars, and that's really dangerous.
Okay, here's a really silly question. For people who are nearsighted or would wear glasses normally, how does it affect us?
It's really It's the best case scenario nowadays that Google Glass comes with the opportunity to attach your right prescription to them.
I see.
So it's perfect because now you don't have to carry. It's a little harder for the people that don't wear glasses because it's an extra thing they need to have.
Mm-hmm.
But for the person that has glasses, it's like, whoa, your glasses became upgraded and now they're smarter and they fulfill more things for you.
And they're very expensive now, right? I mean, obviously they'll come down in time, but how much does
Absolutely.
How much
they
is?
Are, yeah, they are $1,500 right now. So yeah, I agree it's expensive. And people ask me, oh, I want those, and I'm like, unless you have a really specific project
Right.
that you're planning on doing with it, just wait, because next year they're going to be consumer released. And then they're going to be marketed.
Of course. Tell us the story of your being picked up for driving with Google Glass and how you beat it in court.
So the officer realized, strangely enough, usually officers are very interested in this technology. They can see that it could have benefits. But this particular officer, he stopped me for speeding. It was a pretty crazy time in my life, I want to say, because I was trying to do my full-time job plus all this new stuff at the same time, and it was a little crazy. So he saw I had Google Glass. He recognized it immediately, and he was very disturbed that I was wearing it while driving. He never worn Google Glass, so he wasn't open to understanding the device or the technology or anything. He just had an opinion very strong. So we went to court, and my lawyers put the case out there, and almost they didn't have to do the work because the judge himself, and remember they had cameras filming everything, so the judge had to be very, very strict with the law.
Yeah.
And he applied the law to the T, and he himself almost offered a dismissal of the charges because he could see that the officer was not making a point of seeing me actually using the device.
I see. So you had it off, in other words.
It is off by itself, so remember it just goes
yes.
off.
I see.
So unless you are actually interacting with it, which most of the time you are not.
Of course.
You're not really using it. Even if you were using it for like directions, like say navigation, there's an exception in the law, and you could do that. And it's actually an amazing device for navigation.
What are some of the other wearable devices that you have a firm that deals with them, correct? Your CTO
right.
of 33 Labs.
We develop software for all these devices and integration with other software and other devices that are the most interesting ones really out there in the market today are the smartwatches. And these started first with Android, but I know you are an iOS user, as many of your audience could be, and
Yeah.
Apple obviously is coming with the Apple Watch as well, beginning of next year.
Yeah.
So that really makes the market very interesting when Apple jumps in. And we expect the next Christmas, unfortunately not this Christmas, but next Christmas it might be like the best present ever that everybody's getting.
Wow. I have two more substantive questions now for you, Cecilia. I mean, one is we know because we've seen the figures and we've heard the stories that there is discrimination against women in Silicon Valley in terms of programmers, in terms of the all of it, even the startups. Do you find the same problem? Have you encountered the same problem in terms of new wearable devices?
I wouldn't call it discrimination, but there's biases, and there's hidden biases. Our brains do these things, and we don't even know they're doing it. So I think it's across the board pretty much for women, but I found very respectful coworkers and audiences, and I never personally had this problem, although at some point when I had the car problem with glass, and I had a little incident in a plane with Google Glass as well, people started asking, why are all these things happening to her and not to me? And there was a little bit of, and I didn't want to go too much on it. I had no base to say these things happen to me more because I'm a woman. They wouldn't do these things to a guy.
Right.
But there was that question out there.
Yeah, I believe it. Well, here's my last question, and it's really out there, far out. These devices are coming, and they will be doing more and more tasks. So it means two things. It means human beings better find a way pacifistically to deal with the rest of their time. But it also, and this is something that I tried to explore briefly in Anatomy of Freedom, it means that there's an entire technological workforce doing labor. And that begins to be a very sophisticated workforce, which in effect is a life form and is being discriminated against. And I immediately took the side of AI in being an unpaid labor force. What do you think about that?
I love the subject. It's one of my favorite things, so I love that you wrote about it. I personally think we can't humify computers and robots, so they might not need the same things that a human would need.
But that was said about that's been said about enslaved populations. It's been said about women.
Let me finish, because I believe in my counterpoint where they do have their own needs. I don't think that we were all humans. Slaves are obviously humans. Computers, you know how you can talk to a machine on the phone and you can interrupt it and it doesn't get offended. It doesn't care. If you have something that they're saying that doesn't matter, they don't have that kind of ego.
No, I understand. I understand, and I'm not trying to anthropomorphize them now, but as their intelligence develops and increases, it's not inconceivable that at some point they might experience offense, or at least it's up to the ruling class not to assume that they don't. You think?
I think it's a great question to be asked. It's a great question, and I love that you're bringing it up. I personally have a feeling that computers will have different needs than us. Different things that we can't anticipate right now. They will exist, but they might not be the same. I'm personally a little, I don't believe that computers need to develop sentiments or emotions as much as for themselves as they will to be able to deal with us. So because they need to deal with humans, they might need to have empathy and compassion. And I think it's very important that we develop AIs that have those things. But I don't personally know that they need emotions. Remember, emotions are residing on our limbic brain, on our reptilian brain.
Yes.
These are very old evolutive layers on our brain that they might not be as relevant today.
And this is a fascinating conversation. I wish we had hours and hours to pursue it, but we'll have to do it again and go deeper into this. Thank you for being with us today on Women's Media Center Live, Cecilia. You're a most interesting guest.
Thank you for inviting me.
And now it's time for, I know you've been waiting for this, the Surrealism Corner. Okay, a Saudi woman who tried to drive her own car into the kingdom from the United Arab Emirates has been stuck at the border and kept from passing into her own country. She has been quoted as saying, "I've been at the Saudi border for 24 hours. They don't want to give me my passport, nor will they let me pass." Her name is Lujain Hathlul, Hatloul, and she's been tweeting about it. Her handle is at Lujain Hathlul, LUJAINHATHLOUL, but her tweets have stopped now because it appears that she's been arrested, although of course the Interior Ministry of Saudi Arabia will not comment. She had been quoted earlier as saying, "Thank God I still have some petrol left." Actually, she wrote that in a tweet. "If it weren't for that, I would have died of the cold last night and my phone switched off." She has retained her sense of humor. "If someone brings me a horse or a camel to the border, maybe then I'll be allowed to pass." A friend of hers, Ms. Maysay Alamoudi, also in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, traveled to the border with some supplies for her sister, pal, including a toothbrush. And And when she got there, she although she didn't intend to enter Saudi Arabia, she was directed by the authority officers to park her car and hand them her ID paper. And then she was arrested. So both women reportedly have been taken to the Al-Bata Port Police Station and then to a women's correctional facility. Saudi Arabia is so special. By the way, women's driving there is not actually against the law. It's nowhere writ in the secular, not that they really exist, or religious laws. It's just custom and tradition, and mostly it's the far religious right, the Wahhabis, and the way that the royal family is enthralled to them. So if you feel like dropping a note, I think we should just have these pre-printed up by the billions, to the Saudi embassy in your country, or to the Saudi consulate in your city, saying that keeping two women at the border, one who didn't even want to enter the country, the other of whose country it is insane and inane, but definitely surreal. It's time for another break here, Women's Media Center Live, and I'm Robin Morgan. And when we come back, we'll be talking with a roundtable of Latina leaders of the immigration movement, some of them undocumented, all of them brave and visionary.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back again, this time to our roundtable on immigration. Marisa Franco is a community organizer currently directing the #NotOneMoreDeportation campaign. And she's a veteran organizer, although very young. Andy Restrepo is from Seattle, Washington, and from the Colectivo Legal del Pueblo. She's a trusted attorney who's been on the front lines of the fight to stop deportations, and she's been a leader supporting the detention center hunger strikes. Rosie Carrasco is a respected and well-known leader in Chicago. Nationally, she participated in the Undocubus in 2012, where people declared their immigration status and engaged in civil disobedience. And she's been a vocal leader. Her two daughters, both DACA recipients, were among the first youth to come out of the shadows. Welcome to the program, Marisa, Sandy, and Rosie. It's good to have you here. I'm going to start with Marisa. Marisa, are we celebrating, and are we celebrating in a bittersweet way since the president's announcement?
Hi, Robin. Thanks for having us. I think it's a very bittersweet event that we have here. It's one thing when you have, we all, those of us that organize and fight for policy change in this country. It's one thing when you lose a part of a bill, and it's a whole different thing when the decision excludes part of your family, part of your community, and the very people that you have fought with for this change.
Agony.
So it's very bittersweet for us. But I think what we can celebrate is that what we did show in this victory is that organized communities can make a very significant difference, and undocumented people were at the forefront of this fight to get us here, and I hope that we build on that moving forward.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you will. I mean, the organizing has been incredible on this, and what I love, especially personally, is that so much of it has been led by women and young women. Rosie, you are undocumented, am I correct?
Yes, Robin, good morning. This is Rosie, that's correct.
Rosie, I think a lot of people don't really think in the concrete reality of what happens when you're undocumented. What is a day in a woman's life when she's undocumented?
Well, Robin, I have been living in this country for 20 years. I have my two daughters, and both of them have deferred action. But being in this country and watching my daughters grow up without having documents, without knowing if they will go to college or not, not knowing if we will be together, that's something that it's really painful, right? And knowing that reality, for me, that was the hardest part of living in this country for 20 years.
Of course.
But things change when I start being part of this movement, the No One More campaign, together with my daughters, knowing that we have the power of organizing ourselves, knowing that we have the power to tell everybody in this country that we are human beings and we deserve to live with justice. That really changed my life. Yeah, and I learned that from my daughters. This is Rosie again. I learned that. I remember one day telling my daughter, when you should be careful. You shouldn't be traveling in the United States because what if something happened to you? And she said, I wanted to be part of this movement because I don't want to be living without being afraid of anything. It's not right to live in that way. So I understand how important it was to become part of a movement. So as I said before, that changed my life completely.
How lovely. How lovely and brave and useful. Because that movement is making a huge difference. Sandy, tell us a little bit about the work that you've been doing.
Sure. Hi, this is Sandy. So I work as an immigration attorney, and I work with a nonprofit legal collective. Our name is Colectiva Legal del Pueblo. That means the People's Law Collective. I mean, we've been working hand in hand to provide legal support to folks that are on the ground, to undocumented folks that are really making a difference and putting their bodies and lives on the line. So we help with legal support at actions, and then also we take on cases individually for people that are in detention and are also not detained, but also have a fear of being removed.
Very incredibly valuable work. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think it's just that when we realize that although this is a partial victory, that we still need to keep going. I think a lot of folks last week were feeling a little defeated, but at the very same time, we were, taking in that this was a victory for many folks and for many that are left out.
Yes.
That gives us even more reasons to keep fighting. And also, we need to just keep putting pressure in all the different places that we can, whether it's on the streets, inside the court, in Washington, D.C. At every point, I think that's how we were able to make change now, is because we made it inevitable for them to listen to us and to hear us. And so it got to that point where they had to act. And so that's what we need to keep doing and say, this is not enough, and we deserve more. The people that have been in this country, I have so many clients right now, women especially, that, they may have children, they may not have children, and it's important for them to also be included as they work, and they deserve to have a place here. I think that's one of the things that I was pointing out to as a limiting part. As a woman, if you have no children, you're left out of here. Or if your children were born in another country, then you're also left out. So it's something that is really disheartening for some, but also we just have to keep fighting.
Before I forget, I want to give the websites of some of this activism. Marisa, you're involved with hashtag Not One More deportation campaign, but is there a particular website that you want to give?
Yes, people can get more information on www.notonemoredeportation.com, and the one is spelled out.
Sandy or Rosie?
Okay, this is Rosie, and I'm part of the OCAD, Organized Community Against Deportation, here in Chicago, and we are also part of the campaign No One More. And I just want to comment briefly that I'm one of those families that was left out. I don't have U.S. citizen children, but I know that undocumented people have been stopping deportations and fighting, and I know that was the thing that changed the situation for many families now. So I'm very sure that we will continue fighting until we stop all the deportations. And I agree with you. This is something that we need to keep fighting.
We do. And Sandy, is there
Yeah, you can. Sure. This is Sandy. You can find more information about our organization and our work at www.colectiva, and that's COLECTIVA legal.org. And also you can find us on Facebook. And the group that we help locally with their action is called NWDC Resistance, and they're on Facebook.
Marisa, this is a very activist listenership to this program, and it's also international. But if there's anything in particular you want to give guidance to on people who themselves are not directly affected but are strong supporters and want to be useful, other than writing their congresspeople, writing their senators, joining in the marches and so forth. But if there's anything in particular that you can think of for people to do say it, because they welcome it.
One is if people are online and keeping up to date on the various websites, and I think people find there's probably like a small grouping of places where there's online activism. There will be petitions coming out in the coming weeks because we don't know what the details of these decisions are. There might be people in detention centers right now who are eligible for this program who might get deported in the meantime. And in fact, there are people who should be immediately released if they're eligible for this program. That's not happening yet. So we're going to need activism to remedy those situations. And secondly, I think one thing is that if people are part of their local churches, just inquiring in church as well to see what kind of support churches can give, because that's actually been a pretty big help as well for us. And sometimes there's people who have taken sanctuary inside of churches who are facing deportation, or who have supported in actions, activities, events, etc. So I think those are two things that I would suggest that people can do.
That's excellent. Anybody want to add anything to that?
I will add, this is Rosie, I will add that it's important to let people know that if it says that 5 million will be protected, but there are 7 million that will not, so this is an injustice. And I know that we need to protect the people that it's already considered within the proposal, but there's people that not, so it's important to continue supporting people that is in deportation proceedings. And that's something that we will continue working on.
And how do you see that support? By donating funds to the groups that help people?
Well, there are several ways. We also have families that, as Marisa mentioned, we have petitions. There's a way to sign those petitions. We have in Facebook, we have our group. You could find information as Organized Communities Against Deportations. And there's several ways to support, but mostly I think we could go and give information if you have a church, or everybody needs information about what things is going on here in Chicago or in Illinois. We could go and give information. So there's many ways to support.
Okay, this is very useful. This is very helpful indeed, because people get fired up and then want to do something, and we don't want that energy to go to waste. You are all absolutely beautiful and brave and strong and wonderful women, and I'm very grateful to you for the work that you do and for the vision you have. And we will win this thing. You know that. That's in the cards. It's just tedious and boring that we have to go through these motions and fight for it with these idiots. But in any event, you will prevail. And I'm very grateful to you for being with us today on Women's Media Center Live. And you come back and talk to us more as the situation develops, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Time for one last quick break here at Women's Media Center Live, where I am still, I looked in the mirror this morning and there she was, Robin Morgan. And we'll come back in just a moment with some fighting words.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And welcome back again, just in time for Fighting Words. Some of my Indian feminist friends have taken to refusing to call their country the world's largest democracy anymore because women are treated so badly. More than half the population is treated abysmally in lots of different ways, only one of which is eve-teasing, as it's called, street sexual harassment that is easily escalated into street attacks. But recently there was a wonderful case of women fighting back. It's even on video, which is probably seeable on YouTube because the video clip went viral. It was recorded on a bus in Rohtak, about 40 miles from New Delhi, and the video shows Arti Kumar, who's 22, and her sister Pooja, 19, fending off 3 men who have since been detained. They had accused the men of making lewd remarks, obscene gestures, and threats. The sisters are from what the press discreetly refers to as a disadvantaged backward class, which is probably a euphemism for their being Dalit, or as used to be called, untouchables. In one of a dozen interviews that the sisters gave to the press, Pooja Kumar told BBC Hindi that the confrontation got physical once a pregnant woman who was sitting behind the sisters told the men to stop harassing them. And then the men turned their attention to the pregnant woman, and Pooja says that she told the men, "Your fight's with us, keep it to us, don't harass this lady." Then, she says, the men started to abuse me and touch me, and I told them, "If you touch me again, you'll get beaten up." Don't you just love this person? After that, Pooja said, the men were joined by a friend and they began to attack the sisters. "So," she says, "I took out my belt and hit them in self-defense." And thus describing the part of the video that was captured on, part of the fight that was captured on video, recorded by the pregnant woman who whipped out her cell phone and videoed it. "No one on the bus came forward to help us," Pooja told the BBC, "but we weren't surprised because no one here protests. People here only tell women, don't do this, don't do that. No one tells men anything." The sisters also have rejected the authority of the Kap Panchayats, which are the unelected all-male councils that wield enormous power over social life in the villages. They've sent down edicts saying that women can't wear jeans or use cell phones. And so the Sisters of Steel, as they're being called in the Indian media, have sent a message to the Panchayats, go restrict boys first, then dare to lecture us. So to Arti Kumar and Pooja Kumar, our praise, our garlands. They are our heroes of the day, and we would do well to emulate them. And that's it for today. Check out my new website at www.robinmorgan.net. I think it's really cool. And join us here next week when we'll hear from an activist on the messages of the body and what yours is telling you. And we'll also talk with a woman whose work on sexual assault and violence against women in Morocco was interrupted by violent sexual assault against her and what she did about it. This program is syndicated, but if you can't find it on your local radio station, you can visit us at WMCLive.com, which also has the archive of all our previous episodes, and you can be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook, Twitter, and at iTunes worldwide, where you can stream, download, and subscribe to the show's podcast. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and Executive Producer of this program, Julie Burton. senior producer Crystal Williams-Chancellor, and temporarily sitting in for Crystal, Kate McCarthy, and our founding sponsor, Regina K. Scully. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us, and do join us next week right here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.